available by tomorrow for anybody that couldn't attend. Sorry that we're late. We had a Sutton Walk board meeting that was just finishing up and they were using the Zoom. So we had to wait for them to finish things up. Couple of updates. Just a reminder, I think you all probably know this, but if you have a question, please put it in the chat and we will just go right down the row and try to answer as many questions as we can. So some updates. Hopefully you all either saw at the LCA board meeting Tuesday or saw on the link that went out yesterday, an update on the LCA amenities and where we're at with that. I'm not going to go through that line by line, but that is in the most recent link that went out yesterday. I will let you know that, we've made a commitment. Obviously, the residential units are what's the priority right now to get done. So we're purposely holding off what needs to be done in these areas in regards to drywall prep and then eventually drywalling until we get farther along in that process with all of the residential units. So that's why those areas are kind of just held off right now for probably another week or so until they resume. But we'll provide you more updates as we go. On the community pools, we are still waiting on parts for the 2 Wedgwood pools as well as the Sutton Walk pool. Unfortunately, what's down at those pools are parts that are down in other areas, and so they're obviously hard to get right now, back ordered. As soon as those are in, those pools will be open. Permitting had another batch come in yesterday. As of yesterday's report, they had about 60 or 70 permits in hand. We filed about 130 or so permits when this started. That covered all the buildings and all of the LCA areas. They were all approved, but what's happening now, I think I mentioned this last Zoom, now they're being issued, and the way they're issued is they're coming in batches via email where the actual permit is there to have in hand. So I did not get an update yet this morning. I've been involved in too many meetings this morning, but they got a big batch yesterday. So, I mean, I would think certainly by the end of this week, most of those permits will be in hand. But I don't have an exact number, and I don't know exactly who's got permits in what areas. I don't have that specific count for anybody right now. And then an update on the restoration packages for the associations. Met with all the vendors again earlier this week, trying to answer any remaining questions they have. I was hopeful we could start seeing some of their preliminary drafts by now, but they're all working hard, trying to confirm vendors, timelines, things like that. So I don't have anything new to share other than, the plan is still to offer, a package for each association through a reputable vendor that can be one of the options you choose to go with for restoration. It's nothing you have to do, but it's just there in case you don't want to hire a general contractor or do the restoration yourself. And again, just so we limit the questions that I know tend to come up on this subject, the packages are the packages. That there aren't any customization options. There aren't any options where you can elect not to get a particular floor done or not to do any floors. It would be a turnkey package that these guys are offering. And I hope to have something out to everybody soon so they can look at that. But those guys are all working hard to try to get that done. So that's kind of my update. See what we got questions wise. Is the mold remediation license for CJC posted for residents to see? There is no mold remediation license. Mold is part of the remediation process. I mean, if they're encountering mold, they're remediating that. But this is much grander than mold remediation, and there is no particular license for mold remediation. Why could the incremental jobs in Southmont Cove not be combined? Example, insulation, electrical, and plumbing. I'm going to assume that's because you've got different crews doing each one. I don't know too many electricians that also plumb, but they've got a separate crew going in to do electrical, do plumbing, and then put the insulation in. So hopefully I answered that. Has CJC verified that electrical and plumbing inspections are not needed? Yeah, those are not needed. However, the inspections that are needed, there's a preliminary inspection that will have to happen for the checking of the insulation. And again, the insulation is just going up in the perimeter of the buildings, in between units and on the exteriors. There's no insulation in between walls. There wasn't there before, and there won't be there now. So there is an inspection process that happens to confirm the insulation. I'm told that's being done or will be done via like a FaceTime or a video. It's a more of a cursory check. And then there's also an inspection that's needed prior to the drywall getting their first coat of mud. There's a particular ordinance isn't the right word, but particular screw pattern that has to be followed for drywalling in Lee County, and they come in and check for that. So there are 2 inspections that happen in the process, but electrical and plumbing, my understanding, at least not up until drywall being hung, there is no inspections for that. The HOAs have given CJC initial deposit fee. Rumors that it's about 4.5 million. Is that number, and where's the money coming from? Yes, all the associations, I don't know, about a month into this, Clyde Johnson had asked for deposit money. I mean, at that point, they had commitments for a considerable amount of money to the project already. So all of the associations paid a deposit based on the number of units in their association. It was really just a preliminary guess. I think that 4.5 million is probably about right. I would say that's probably close. LCA also put a deposit in. For most of the associations, that came out of reserve money in emergency times. All the documents allow for the borrowing of reserves. So what will happen when insurance proceeds come in? Obviously, that deposit money will be going to pay for remediation efforts, of which there will be insurance proceeds for. So those insurance proceeds will then go back and replenish those reserves that were borrowed from. So, but yes, that all happened. That was probably maybe the 2nd or 3rd week of October. That all happened. Appliances and furniture are still in units. How long will be able to take things to the curb? I think I've mentioned this a few times before. FEMA is still in the neighborhood right now. I saw them again today, but I am told that they're going to do a second loop, a complete second loop that I believe will start sometime later in December once they get all of Lee County done. So we're going to see them do another loop. And then I'm told that if a 3rd loop is needed, that you can request for that as well. So it may be, I mean, I definitely can see FEMA still hanging around for a couple of more months for sure. One of the thoughts and suggestions that I've gotten that I think is a good one is, I mean, just in case, I mean, if you have not went through and replaced your appliances, but at some point in the near future, you do that. I mean, on the safe side, coordinate with your appliance company to take those old appliances with them. I mean, that certainly guarantees that those appliances aren't sitting on a curb or you miss FEMA. And it also means that we don't have appliances sitting out for another month waiting for FEMA to come back around. So, I mean, I would encourage everybody at this point going forward, if you go to replace appliances, work for the removal of those. I know in normal times that is usually the process. When a vendor delivers you a new dishwasher, they're going to take the old dishwasher with them. So I would encourage you to do that. Are we keeping CJC accountable for the money they are spending? In other words, is someone closely monitoring weekly the amount of money they are spending on remediation for each association? Yeah, I mean, CJC is well aware of what insurance limits are there for remediation. And that's what we're tying this process to. And that'll be the ultimate check and balance with what's being done, is trying to match up remediation proceeds with what we're being billed for Clyde Johnson. So, I mean, I can assure you, I mean, I'm not sure where the concern comes from, but I mean, we're in this, running this like we would any other business or any other project. I mean, there is certainly watchful eyes being done, and will continue to be done when it comes to invoices provided from CJC and payment. So you can rest assured that's happening. A neighbor told us our water heaters are being removed from our condos last weekend. Why? Ours was working. The reason they had to remove the water heaters in most cases was to get to the drywall that was on the other side of those. Those water heaters are being taken offline. They're being capped, so they can still have running water if need be, and then left in place. It's really going to be up to the homeowner whether you want to replace that water heater. I mean, obviously, if black water, Cat 3 water get into that water heater, we would encourage you to replace that. And we believe there's insurance proceeds that cover new water heaters, but they're not being thrown away. Is there a preliminary plan in place for how insurance payments will be calculated and distributed? Can that be made public? Preliminary plan, yes. I mean, we've certainly had discussions, hypotheticals. I mean, we're not going to know anything until we get the insurance reports, but I mean, at the highest level, coming up with an estimate of any remaining invoices due for remediation that can be subtracted off of the insurance claims, and then the balance essentially being for restoration. The hope is once we start seeing reports, that will align with us also getting checks from insurance companies, and we're hopeful that if that happens, when that happens, we can at least do a preliminary payment to everybody for a percent of, what we believe is going to be there for restoration, to get everybody some money to put deposits down and things like that. I mean, that's all hypothetical and discussion points now, but again, there's a lot more to that than hypotheticals, in that we have to see the insurance reports. We have to have the money in the account. I mean, none of your associations have, a few $1 million laying around to start fronting this process for restoration. But we hope that starts happening soon. Since we've been evicted from our homes for over 2 months and it's going to go well into the 3rd month, I hope First Floor Association, Southmont Cove 4th quarter fees will be waived. Many have been able to use association amenities, but no first floor unit has been able to use their home. That question's come up before. I haven't seen any movement from any association in regards to waiving any fees. And, the reality is many of the things that you pay fees for are still operational and still need to be funded. I mean, all of our associations, and LCA in particular, are all essentially nonprofit. We budget at a break even. So, I mean, there's still expenses going out. And if we waive fees, in essence, those monies would need to be then divided up amongst those that didn't get their fees waived, and they would have to pay more. I mean, that's the essence of budgeting that we deal with from the financial side is we break even. It's what our net is of revenue minus expenses, and then it's divided up amongst all of the owners, whether you're at LCA or whether you're an association. So I don't see that happening. I have not been part of any conversation where I feel like associations are talking about that. I'm just kind of giving you some background as to the financial process and how that works. Just returned to help my mom on East Bay Circle. A few questions. Doors and trims, will that be replaced? Phone lines are cut in the home, will that be repaired? Drywall. And if you're just getting here, I mean, I strongly suggest that you please go to the website. I mean, there's a lot of things on there in regards to a lot of your questions here. But I mean, there other than drywall, Clyde Johnson is not replacing anything. That is all restoration, and Clyde Johnson company has not been contracted for any restoration. So anything inside the walls that may have been broken during remediation, albeit electrical or a phone line like you mentioned, or a water line, those will be repaired before drywall goes out there. And yes, rounded edges, bullnose, yes, if you have a bullnose corner, that will be replaced up to the ceiling when they come in to do drywall. Does our insurance cover the cost of tree and scrub removal and replacement throughout the property? Is that separate from the HOA's policies? So property and wind insurance is what would kick in for any sort of landscape repairs, and we haven't seen any property and wind insurance claims yet. One of the issues with the property and wind policy is that those carry much higher deductibles. I know we've talked about this before, but I'll address it again. Most of you have either a 3 or a 5% deductible for your property and wind insurance for your HOA. That means your deductible for almost everybody is over $1 million. So if you don't have $1 million in claims, then you really aren't going to get any insurance proceeds. So most of you, except for Sutton Walk, we don't believe are going to need a roof replacement. And that is the biggest part of the property and wind claim. So while there may be coverage for tree, shrub, debris removal, the reality is there may not be proceeds paid out for that because there may not be enough to reach the deductible. But yeah, I mean, all associations have coverage for debris removal, things like that. We just don't know until we get the reports at what level that's going to come in at. I understand residential or primary, but is it possible to have someone remove the drywall in garages to prevent further damage from mold? I mean, they'll move crews over to do that. I mean, if somebody, I know some people have already done this, if some people want to remove their own drywall, they certainly can do that. I mean, if there's any mold in those garages, it will be remediated fully. But yeah, as we get closer and closer to getting out of the drywall prep phase, which I think most of you guys are in right now, those crews can be freed up to start pulling out drywall and starting to remediate garages. Update on when we will know what we are receiving from insurance or a ballpark figure. I don't have that. I mean, nothing's changed. I mean, if I had that, we would give it to you. But I mean, the insurance process for the flood is really 3 different parts. I mean, you had the field adjusters that came out and looked at every unit. You know, they've created their report. That report then goes to the carrier. The carrier typically would have a desk adjuster that would review that report, and then it would be passed on to the underwriters to approve the payout amount. And then that report would be sent to us. Typically, what we understand would be also with a check for the full amount of the claim. So, I mean, that we're somewhere between the adjusters submitting their report and us getting a check with the report in hand. I mean, that's where we're at in the process. But there is no resources we have either through our agency or through the carriers where we can call and ask for an update on where they're at in that process. And I mean, I'll just give you a quick personal anecdote. I filed a personal homeowner's claim on my property, actually had it adjusted on October 2nd, and I haven't heard a thing from my insurance company. So this is not just Lexington insurance or a Lexington issue. I mean, there's not many people that I'm aware of that have gotten adjusted and gotten full resolution in terms of payment and reports at this point, especially on the flood side. Will they give a schedule of completion times for the packages? Yeah, yes, that is part of the restoration packages. And I think that's also why I haven't seen any of these packages from these vendors yet, is I think they're really trying to confirm product availability, timing. So it was very important that when they put something out, they can give realistic expectations in terms of timing when they feel like they would be done restoring a unit. So I believe, at least when I talk to them, that's typically the conversation, is they're usually waiting to hear back from a vendor, whether it be a cabinet vendor or a flooring vendor, on what they're able to do. What level of drywall will be used? Are the tapers, mudders, et cetera, higher and ready to go? Yeah, they have drywalling staff that's ready to go. I'm not sure what you're asking me in terms of what level of drywall, but I mean, the drywall that's going in the unit matches what's currently in there. The insulation that's being put back in is actually a higher quality, a higher R value than what you previously had, and the drywall is an exact match. Asking me to confirm A&E is not needed for replacement of cabinetry and flooring. That is confirmed. First floor units do not need A&Es for anything inside the unit. Large section of soffit missing from my unit on Stockbridge. Have reported multiple times with photos. Still no word on when it repaired. Wide open to palm wraps. Will someone repair it? Yeah, the soffits are part of it. I mean, what we're seeing a lot with soffits, fencing, things like that is, I mean, we're in the same line as a lot of folks in terms of waiting for those contractors to get on site to fix those things. So if you've reported it, we have it. I also know that I believe just recently, I think they completed it, but we had the pest company back out in Somerset to put the bait boxes back out as well. A lot of those were washed away with the storm, so I think those have been replaced. So, has CJC hired a skilled and experienced drywall hanging force? What drywall level will CJ provide? Level 3 or 4? You're talking way outside my knowledge of drywall and construction. I have no idea if it's level 3 or 4. But I'll do some research, or if you want to send me an email and clue me in on what that means, I'll be happy to find out for you. But I honestly don't know what that means. Would you provide clarification on CJC putting insulation or vapor barrier in prior to drywall? I think I covered that, but I mean, they're putting drywall back in on the exterior walls and the walls that separate units. Basically the same that was in there before, but it's a higher quality, my understanding, a higher R value than what was previously in there. And I'm assuming R value, the higher it is, the better it is. But again, I'm not 100% sure on that, but I'm assuming that's what that means. As more and more items are moved from remediation to renovation, shower doors, toilet set, can you assure us that these costs in CJ quote are being properly moved? Folks, I can promise you that invoicing is going to be scrutinized. I mean, I don't think we're going to handle, the process of paying vendors in this any different than we do 365 days a year. I mean, we're used to managing millions and millions of dollars in invoices here at Lexington with our staff. And so our work isn't going to change, and our commitment to verifying invoices and their accuracy isn't going to change. I mean, rest assured. So I think maybe, hopefully, I can assure some of you all that's not something you're losing sleep over. But yes, that's part of our process. That's what we do from a business perspective here. It appears the insurance follow-up is or will be a huge task. Has the board considered hiring a professional to administer and manage? Yes, we've talked about that. We've also been in contact with counsel in regards to potentially engaging a public adjuster at some point in this process. I mean, there's a lot of options open to us, but we really need to see kind of what we're dealing with in terms of these insurance reports and the claim amounts. And we're also looking at, and I think I mentioned this before, how we can engage owners to get involved as well. Because at some point in time, you're going to be giving the proceeds to restore your unit. And those reports are going to be based on what you had in your unit before. And amounts will be based off of what the insurance carrier says it should cost to replace a certain level of cabinet or flooring. And if you can't get it replaced for the amount that's in the insurance proceeds, then we believe that you have the option to supplement that claim with an additional request by providing receipts. And so we're trying to also work with legal counsel and our agency to find the easiest way to do that, to let you get involved if you've got something that costs more than what insurance proceeds paid out, that you have the opportunity to get that money back as well on the insurance claim. So that's all being discussed. where can we get a copy of CJC's license to, I think this is about the 5th question you've asked about CJC's mold license. So CJC does not have a mold license. They're not performing specifically mold remediation. So I don't have any information to give you on that. And I've heard that kind of rumor circulating now for a couple of weeks, but that's not something dealing with Cat 3 water and the work that we're doing that is required. So, if you have something to the contrary, certainly send it to me, but hopefully we've answered that question for you. Will we get individual statements from CJC for each identifiable unit, especially if we hired ServPro? It would be a shame to be charged for services that are already done. This takes consideration if they charge a flat fee per unit. Yeah. Well, I could tell you that, they're definitely, to say they're charging a flat fee per unit, that may be something that they estimated, but at the end of the day, we know there was different things done at different units. And also your association's aware that some of you did hire your own contractor. With that said, I mean, and again, I'm not saying this negatively or pessimistically, but we also said when you hired your own contractor, you also took on a certain level of risk in terms of potentially paying more than what the market value was to get the work done that they did. And the person that asked me this question, maybe you were one of the ones that actually got a good deal, but I've also seen contracts that I thought were pretty exorbitant, where I can tell you if you paid way more than what Clyde Johnson's charging us to do the work, you're not going to see that entire amount be credited back to you. But yes, our goal, and we're going to work with the associations to come up with the fairest way to identify what expenses happened for remediation. But at the end of the day, remember, this is an association. This is an association project, right? It's being done by the association. Legally, they have to take this course. So these are considered common expenses. It's not any different than when an elevator goes down. Everybody shares in those costs for that particular building. So I think there's going to be some balance between trying to produce the best information we have and assigning it on a building or unit basis to be able to come up with what to deduct from those insurance claims. And again, I'm speaking again hypothetically on just ideas that we've talked about. But again, we won't really know how to handle this until we see these reports, see the amount of money that's been allotted, and be able to work up the best plan to do that. Is CJC responsible for damage to personal property from carelessness? I mean, I would say from carelessness, they certainly would take responsibility. I think the issue you run into is, I mean, what's carelessness? I mean, we're in a construction zone. So, I mean, there are things that I'm sure have happened based on the fact that we're in construction. And I'm sure there's things that have happened because somebody's dropped something or maybe it's carelessness as you define it. I think there's all kinds of things that are happening. At this point, I know some of you have contacted us and given us, information on what you feel was broken or what have you. There is no plan in place at present how we're going to handle that. But it is something that the associations and Clyde Johnson will have to have a discussion on. But at this point, that nothing's been determined with that. And I think it's a pretty wide ranging topic when you start getting into what's carelessness, what's negligence, what's really, for a golfer term, rub of the green, if you will, in doing these. So will the packages include appliances? No, they will not. I've told the vendors not to worry about that, because from day one, not really from day one, but from early on, we've told you, if you want to replace your appliances, go replace them, save your receipt. We believe insurance proceeds will be there to cover that. So CJC has their schedule. Why can't we see that schedule? CJC is providing the projected schedule that they have to your communities. I mean, the reality is, though, we're not talking definitive dates here. We're talking about, okay, this is what's next in line. This is how long we think it's going to take us. But as you've seen already, there's other factors in play. I mean, we've got permitting, we've got inspections. I mean, there's other things. So, I mean, it's not like anybody's holding on to a schedule that we haven't shown you. Your association is meeting with Clyde Johnson more than weekly to get updates, and then they're sending you all updates via email. I've seen them all go out, and I know some of them have started projecting some end timelines. But again, I would caution that those are definitely doable and reachable, but there's also factors that could delay that. And there's also factors that maybe they get done a little bit earlier. I think it's difficult to tell. And I agree, you all want to know when you get back in your unit. And if we had an exact date for that, we would give it to you. But we don't have an exact date for that right now. Has there been water pressure testing in Somerset Villas? Bathrooms have been used, not by homeowner, not flush, not a pleasant odor. I think you got quite a few questions there. Has there been water pressure testing in Somerset Villas? I don't know of any. I don't know where they're at in Somerset with the pressure testing, but typically that's been happening after they get a check to make sure all of the water lines, piping, et cetera, has been corrected. So I don't know where they're at. Somerset's a big animal, 204 units, 72 buildings. I don't know exactly where they're at, but they're in that process in Somerset for sure. Where can we turn in our electric bills for excess use while the drying equipment was being used? I don't have an answer. I don't think your association is going to pay for that. And certainly Lexington's not. I mean, that's part of the process. I have heard, or I've done research that says potentially there's insurance coverage on the cleanup that accounts for that equipment and running it. But again, I can't confirm that. I haven't seen that, but I'm not advising you to send your bills to your association or Lexington. Yeah, your water heater question, I think I answered that. The water heaters are being detached, but they're not being removed from the unit. Again, I don't know what the holdup is with the adjusters. I think I've given you that information. I mean, we're in contact as much as we can. I don't know what the holdup is. It's probably the same holdup as everybody else's experience here in Lee County. I mean, everybody's going through this. So I don't know what else to tell you that. So. Yeah, we will not know until we get back in and can test our appliances, whether they work or not. I agree with that. I mean, some of you guys were in your units up until the middle of October and knew your appliances weren't working. So once you get back in your unit, if they're not working, I think that's why I mentioned that if you find out you need to replace your refrigerator, when you contract that out and they deliver you the refrigerator, have them pick up the old refrigerator. I think that will eliminate any concern about whether FEMA is going to come by or whether we're going to have appliances sitting out in front of our units for a month or two. Just have them take them with them at this point. At the board meeting, it was mentioned that Tiki Furniture is being replaced and $1 million landscape is being considered. Well, let me stop there. I was at the board meeting. There was no discussion about $1 million landscaping project being considered. I referenced that if we wanted to look at cleaning up the entire property line, which is 1.5 miles, that it would be over $1 million to do that. But I don't believe anybody's considering that right now. The Tiki Furniture was approved and ordered prior to this. It was actually on the September board meeting agenda. That because it was canceled, didn't actually get formally approved. So, and the Tiki Furniture, I don't think anybody out there is going to deny that we needed to replace that. And we were very creative with funding on how to use that. We used reserves, and we also decided not to push forward with a food truck, which was in this year's operating budget. So again, we are mindful. I mean, if you're paying attention to the finances, proud of the fact that the staff here at Lexington continues to run better than budget, and the latest update showed that as well. And so that the staff is doing a great job managing finances and taking care of your money in these times. So, would it be correct to assume units in Somerset Villa who were deemed dry and the water mapping process will not receive any of the reimbursement insurance proceeds? I think that's hard to tell. Again, you've got different factors at play. I mean, not every adjuster talk to the people doing the water mapping. So I have no idea, how that's going to play out, how those adjusters reports are going to reflect those units. I also know that we had some units that said you took water when it was found out that you didn't take water. And I know some where the water mapping said you didn't take water, but then it was found that you did take water. So I think that's why we need to get these insurance reports in and sorted out. In Somerset, not only is it the biggest association with the most units, it's the most diverse in terms of so many different ranges of water and issues with the impact of that water. It isn't like Bridgestone where everybody took water, and it wasn't like Southmont Cove where everybody took water. Somerset is all over the place with depending on where you're at. So it's going to be a little more difficult and challenging organizing Somerset. Estimate of time for when drywall taping and mudding will be complete. I don't have an estimate on time on anything. Some of your associations have put out some temporary timelines or possibly completed by dates, but I don't have anything else to share than that. Will each of the 4 or 5 package contractors prepare a package for each floor plan, each association? Thus we'll have 4 or 5 choices for each floor plan. I mean, they are putting together packages based on each floor plan, yes, but I don't anticipate each package being different. I think they're using the same materials for the 3 floor plans that are in Bridgestone. It's just the packages may be a little bit different on price because each of those 3 floor plans are different square feet. So you may have more flooring in one or more walls to paint in one. So I think that the materials and the options will be the same, but the pricing will be different because some floor plans are smaller than others on a square footage basis. So does Lexington have legal representation overseeing this process? Lexington does, as well as your associations. Absolutely. And I've stated this many times that your association boards, as well as Lexington, has been following the advice of legal counsel since the first day of this storm. They have advised us on what steps to take and what to do. So yes. Universal Property sent me a letter. Yeah, I'm not going to speak to personal insurance claims. I mean, if you got a letter from your personal insurance adjuster for zero, I think that you obviously should probably call your agent or your carrier. Is DJW one of the vendors that's on the list? DSW is one of the vendors that we're working with for the vendor contracts. Yes. Are broken pipes fixed by CJC? Yes, they are. Will the landscape and palm trees be replaced that were removed due to the storm? Absolutely. I'll be realistic though. That will be something that each association determines in terms of what they want to replace, where, what materials. And I'm again, just being honest, I can see your association needing to get farther past the current process to understand what other expenses they have in regards to the property and the buildings before they start committing to funds to landscaping. So I think you're going to be a little bit of time, months, before you see anything happening with replacement of landscaping and trees. Correct. Somebody's asking about water heaters. Correct. Clyde Johnson's not going to re-hook up that water heater. They're taking it out to remove the drywall. The drywall will go back in. The drywall will be mudded, and then that unit will be turned back over to the owner. So the owner will need to reinstall the water heater. Is there a master spreadsheet with open items that could be pushed out or reviewed on a regular basis? Obviously, it would be too much detail for this meeting, but could be covered in statuses. I mean, that's what, I mean, your association is meeting. I mean, they're meeting almost daily with the supervisors that are in your area for Clyde Johnson, but they formally meet one time a week with the 2 main project managers. And that's what they're doing, is going essentially street by street or building by building on what needs to be done. So, I mean, those lists are there. But again, I don't think it hasn't something to date that's been pushed out to the masses, because it's really just a punch list on, a lot of times it's just things that we hear. Somebody says, I have a broken pipe, or I just realized this wire was cut. It's more in regards to again, punch list items, not necessarily things that are happening in the process, but I'll read this one since it's positive, and I don't get a chance to speak positively enough around here. So I personally have had a good experience with Clyde Johnson. They are friendly. My units always picked up, counters were saved, everything broke appears to be fixed. It's unfortunate that the drywall has stalled. I appreciate their efforts, so thank you. So are you saying we will get an itemized insurance breakout from the insurance adjuster? Yes, I've been saying that since the beginning of time, that I believe that these reports are going to be very detailed, and it's going to show you line by line, even room by room, what's been accounted for in terms of remediation, in terms of restoration. So I believe these reports are going to be extensive. I will tell you that. Yep. If our place was completely gutted before adjusters arrived, how will they know the quality of contents, etc.? I agree. And that is an issue. And for some of those people that had things torn out, that's why we're trying to find the best way to be able to put owners in touch with our insurance carrier, to file those supplemental claims in the event that they listed that you had carpet in a particular room, yet you had bamboo floors. Obviously, bamboo floors are a lot more expensive than carpet, so insurance proceeds should be higher to replace bamboo floors. So if they didn't get it right the first time, we want to try to provide an easy system for you to do that. And that's what we're working on. Yeah. Can you at least verify that first floor units will get something from insurance? We're putting down deposits on basic. I am going to confirm that first floor units are going to get something from insurance. Yes, I confirm that. Are we going to be reimbursed for being displaced, lodging, food, travel, etc.? That is not part of the flood insurance policy. We had mentioned before that to suggest that you check your owner's policy, your personal policy, because some people do have loss of use in there. Not everybody, but some personal policies do have that. So if you have not called your insurance agent, I would suggest you do that. Canopy at the island pool be replaced. Yep, that has actually been looked at and on order. I mean, canopy companies, fencing companies, signage companies, they are busy right now, but I know that's been put on the hit list, as well as I know Chris and Indra are looking at some other temporary, and Travis, some more temporary shade structures as well, because it may be a while, excuse me, until that's fixed. Will LCC put brochures of contractors on our website? Yeah, I mean, once I have that information, we do plan to get that out to each association. We'll put it on the website, and we'll also email it out to you. I'm sure we'll have pamphlets here. From what I'm seeing that they're showing me already, it's going to be like you would expect. I mean, they're going to have brochures, and it's going to talk about the type of flooring and the different colors you have. And I believe even I think some of them, if not most of them, plan on setting up here on site, where if you actually wanted to come in and feel the quality of the cabinet or something like that, that they would also have that available. But again, it's all things we're trying to iron out right now, just to make sure. All right. Out of questions, so I'll give you another minute or two, and then I've got to move on. So if you got something, throw it up there real quick, please. Okay, we'll wrap it up. Thanks everybody for coming. We'll let you know when the next one's going to be. And you guys all have a good afternoon. Thanks.